Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Reality Check Podcast. Tonight, I am joined clockwise by I have man boob sweat from being outside. Marcus, the man be composting, he be raising chickens, he be farming. And then below that, Raul Mas, which is Spanish for more. Raul bringing on more as usual. All right, so tonight's topic title is Iran deal delays. That's an understatement, and primary races. I want to talk about first Iran. Uh, I am getting, maybe I'm a bit cynical, snake bit, whatever you want to call it, jaded. I'm getting really exhausted with Trump's 95%. They have no Navy. It's at the bottom of the sea. They have no Air Force. They have no planes, but they're still blocking the fucking strait. And then I ask myself, what are they blocking it with then? No, we're blocking the strait. Yeah, we're blocking the strait, but nothing gets through. There's 120 stuck ships there. 12, no, 1,200, excuse me. It used 120, 100 to 120 was the daily traffic, the normal daily traffic of ships that would go through Hormuz. That is not the case. Then we have a little lane, just like a bike. It reminds me of a bike lane in a 6-lane freeway, but I don't see anybody going through our special lane, or very few tankers are going through. Meanwhile, gasoline here is climbing. And listen, I'm sorry if I'm sounding like a nabob, but I see what I see. Even here in Florida, where we've always enjoyed very low fuel prices, it's pretty high. I mean, I go to Sam's Club as I'm a Sam's Club member, and I fill there, and you can see it there. It's $4 and change. I don't fill that often, thank God, in Vero Beach. But I imagine a poor schlub in any other state that's got to drive 5 days a week to work, particularly if they live far from their job, or they have to go get kids, they have to take them to soccer practice, whatever. That's got to be rough. And I'm seeing that we blew up the regime. We blew up whatever one, two, three levels of the mullahs. But so what? There's an entrenched IRGC, Republican Guard. They're the ones calling the shots. They always were. The mullahs were just a cleric cover. They don't have the guns. The IRGC's got the guns. The people can't come out. They can't reclaim their city. They can't take back their nation. And Trump is holding off. He keeps saying that they want a deal. The optics are, and maybe this is all wrong, and maybe I'm playing checkers with bottle caps, and Trump is playing 3D chess. I don't know, but there's so little let out about it. What I see is that he is desperate for a deal, and I see that he is all talk and he's no action. He's not. I mean, a guy that annihilated them as he did, he keeps going with these ceasefires. They keep fighting. Then he's going over there and chewing out Bibi Netanyahu. What the fuck is that? Hezbollah is attacking them, and he's saying, "Don't fight back." I just heard today that he called him and he really laid into him. It was like, what WTF are you doing? Are you effing crazy, et cetera, et cetera. That is our most valuable ally, and who's done a lot of our dirty work over there, a lot of our heavy lifting, and put troops on the ground. And my inescapable conclusion is that Iran is calling Trump's bluff, and they're saying, we don't give a shit about elections, but we know you do. We don't give a shit about our people being exterminated, but we know you do. We don't have to face the consequences or get impeached or have a party turn on us, but we know you do. And we're going to wait you out. And I just wish to God that I could be proven wrong and that this thing is, I'm having a nightmare and I wake up and none of this is true. Marcus, would you like to weigh in on this topic?
Yeah, I think people like 10, 20 years from now will be talking about this, where how to convert like tactical dominance to strategic success. We have the dominance, but how do you convert it where uh, uh, we get what we want? And it's between the Iranian 10-point plan and the U.S. 15-point plan. When you read both of them, there's there's no common ground to settle. And as Raul mentioned a while back, if we don't, if we're not definitive in our objectives, we're going to do what he called mowing the lawn, where we're going to be revisiting this periodically, even though we've done decapitation strikes, we did defanging with their mining, their maritime assets, their air assets, their missile assets, their drone capabilities. But I think we got a lot, maybe up to 60%, but not all of it. But the thing is, it's it's uh, it's U.S. hesitancy to commit, and then to commit, you need to really have troops on the ground for regime change, and because if we don't, it's between like Iran's no Israel's self interest and U.S. self interest, where Iran wants to fundamentally weaken Iran, balkanize it, break it into various parts of the state, or collapsing the regime. And the U.S., I think they're kind of pushing towards like a negotiated containment, like a Middle East Cold War, which in my eyes, and I think Israel's eyes, Iran's gonna morph into Iranian 2.0, where they're going to learn from the mistakes and they're going to be smarter about how they conduct asymmetrical warfare. So that's my take on things, and kind of coinciding with Israel, they're going in their self-interest. They got attacked, and they're bombing Lebanon again, dealing with Hezbollah. By any rights they should, but that's part of the divergence in Iranian 10-point plan. Like, do not attack any of our proxies. So
which lets them call the shots. They shouldn't be calling the shots. We have all the cards according to Trump. Raul, would you like to weigh in, please, on this?
No, listen, I think, Carlos, that you summarized it very well when you mentioned, in your opening comments that, what's going on here. I mean, you keep hearing the same thing over and over again from the White House, reiterating that, we've won. There's no doubt about it. We've won. But yet, we're still like waiting, right? I mean, the oil prices, the gasoline prices haven't come down. The ships aren't crossing through in the numbers that they need to be. And I think you're right. I think a lot of people, a lot of Americans, and including supporters of the president, are asking themselves that very question. What the hell is going on here? How much longer do we have to listen to this? Like, hey, don't worry, we won. We just have to be patient for them to agree to our terms. That's not exactly a victory, right? It's just kind of like you just string you along indefinitely, and you're declaring victory. I think the campaign was successful. Okay, the military campaign, particularly in terms of decapitating great many of their leaders. But what I think we kind of missed here is, we took out the first layer, we took out the second layer, possibly even the third layer of leadership. Okay. But now there's like nobody really with any experience or, backing to really negotiate on the part of the country. Right. And there is, the only thing that I can draw from that is that there is an incredible amount of turmoil, within Iran, and that there are, the IRGC, elements of the IRGC. Remember, these guys are radical, fundamentalist, Muslims who welcome, death at every opportunity, who absolutely want to go down in a blaze of glory type of stuff, right? And they don't want to cede. They want to keep fighting to the bitter end. And if you are, a civilian, a quote unquote civilian leader in that environment, and you're trying to save your economy, and you're trying to, put your country back together again, you're facing yourself with these sort of, guys that welcome, a glorious death, martyrdom, right? That's what they're looking forward to, and they think that the whole Iranian people are going to go with them. I think, that was where, we didn't really sort of think that through, right? Okay, so what happens if we're extraordinarily successful at killing all their leadership, but then who's going to lead, right? I mean, we took them all out. Who's there? Who's going to step into the vacuum, okay, and say, no, I'm running the country now. Listen to me, right? And I think that's what you're seeing right now. And there's probably a lot of people that are, getting killed and inside, IRGC killing people off, and vendettas taking place, and all this kind of stuff that they're going through. And that uncertainty is translating to, I think, frustration on the part of the American people, on the part of the Trump supporters as well, and I think Trump is, he's not going to commit ground troops. Okay, I don't think that he can envision a scenario wherein he does that. And I think one of the lessons to be learned in this whole exercise, because we keep hearing all these stories about, the wars of the future are going to be fought with drones and robots, and we're not going to have troops on the ground or soldiers. We're just going to have these robotic, Terminator type of wars with robots fighting each other. And there's always been a school of thought, a strong school of thought within military circles that at the end of the day, to win a battle, you have to have troops on the ground. You have to capture and hold territory. Okay, and that, as you're seeing right now, cannot be done with massive air power. Cannot be done with missiles and drone attacks and things of that sort. With naval gunfire. Whatever. At the end of the day, if you really want to conquer something, and this has been the case for centuries, right? You have to march in there, and you got to take over the place, and you got to say, we're here, and we're running the show now, period. And the president is not going to do that. So, I'm pretty convinced that I just don't see a scenario, even though I think his senior military is telling him, look, we can do it, and if that's what it takes for decisive victory, perhaps we should. Okay, but I don't think the president is willing to do that, at least not at this point, right? I mean, I think somehow he figures that they're eventually going to come to a deal. Like in all these situations, Carlos, we only know what we're told through the press, right? I mean, neither you nor I nor Marcus are privy to, what's actually going on behind closed doors, right? And I've heard some pretty smart people saying, without, citing sources, because that would get them in trouble, saying, hey, listen, things are in fact working in the direction that we want it to work. But there is this chaos going on, but they are at wit's end, and they are very frustrated, and the place is collapsing from within, but we just can't push it along. We can't make this thing go exactly the way we want it to go. There's a lot of uncertainty still. So I don't know if that, if I explained myself there, but
very well you have.
There is a lot of, there are people that are saying, it's certain that we won, but it's uncertain when we'll actually be able to declare victory, because nobody's in control right now, and it takes hours and days sometimes to get a response back whenever we put some terms on the table. And I think that has to do with the lack of leadership. It could also be a strategy on their part, getting back to what you also mentioned. They're hoping to sort of wait out the U.S. and I don't know what they're expecting, that China or Russia or somebody else will come to their assistance. I don't think that's going to happen. But for them, diplomatically, the longer they can wait this out, the more they can appear to have some sort of bargaining chip still on their side. By the way, right before we went on air, apparently now there's reports that Kuwait is under attack again, right? Um, and one of the things that this war has done is, countries like Kuwait, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, who, by the way, had a lot of Iranian money sitting in bank accounts. Okay. There was an article in the Wall Street Journal that, when Iran started launching missiles at, the UAE, suddenly the UAE went to Scott Bessent and said, hey, by the way, these are all the bank accounts of all the IRGC people that have money here the United Arab Emirates or in Qatar, whatever. So all of these countries that were sort of like, doing business with the IRGC, because it benefit them. I mean, look, these guys are making, billions of dollars. They got a huge amount of oil coming into the country. They need a safe place to park all that money. And the Qataris and the Emiratis were willing to say, fine, we'll keep it here in our bank. We won't tell anybody it's over here. And just like you got people from Hamas and Hezbollah, living in the Gulf states and living pretty nice lives. Everybody looked the other way. But now that they're under attack, suddenly things have changed. So look, it's not pretty. It is hurting the president, no doubt about it. I think anybody who claims otherwise is just not playing with a full deck of cards, quite frankly. I mean, and you're right. Gasoline prices $4.50 a gallon. Here in South Florida, and all of that is going to sooner or later. It's already being reflected in the price of things, right?
Fertilizer
will just get even worse. I mean, the inflation rate, now whatever 3.8% annualized. It's heading in the wrong direction, right? So, got to get a handle on this. Got to put a close to this one way or another. And if you need to go back in there and break things again, maybe even send in troops, well, the president's going to have to make that call. He's the only person who can make that call, and his political legacy is on the line because he spent his entire career talking about how foolish it was to send American troops into the Middle East, and if now he does it and gets caught in a quagmire, he's going to look like a fool, quite frankly. So
yeah, let me go ahead and then we'll go over to you, Marcus. He already looks like a fool. And the other thing is that I used to laugh at a few months ago, Taco. Now Taco is for real. Trump always chickens out. What he's doing, and let's not forget, Trump has a massive ego. He's got a massive ego. He's got to know that if this continues, he's going to lose the House, he's going to lose the Senate, and then he and his agenda and this nation are fucked. They're fucked because he's going to be impeached nonstop. He's going to be tried for war crimes. It's going to be a bloodbath, metaphorically. There's been a lot of generals and other military strategists commenting that before sending in ground troops, that we could hit certain strategic like oil, energy, different sectors, and some of the targeted places where they are. I think some of the IRGC, like Hamas, is mixed in with civilian population. You know what? Screw it. If we firebombed 49 German cities to rubble to rout the Third Reich, but that was a long time ago when people fought wars to win. The other thing I look at, as far as sending in troops, nobody that has a son, a daughter, a nephew, a godson over there or in the military, especially in that area deployed, wants them embroiled in combat. But in the end, when you sign up for the military, we do not have a draft. This is not Vietnam. It's a volunteer military. Nobody forced these young men and women, which I greatly admire, to sign up. I think a lot of them, especially those numbers, skyrocketed after Trump won the White House. If the commander in chief has their back, they're willing to die. They're willing to go into battle. I don't think it would be those kind of casualties that we saw in Iraq. I really don't think it would be. I think it would be, and maybe the IDF will go in with us as well. I got a feeling that they would, because it's certainly a lot closer to their backyard than it is to ours. If Trump can't take 500-600 casualties, if it even was to reach that, he's going to be screwed either way. I think it already is a quagmire, and I think Iran has got him in a noose. They've got him boxed in, and he needs to change his tactic, because right now, as you said, things are not looking good. Because it's not just that he'll drag. He may say, "I don't give a shit. I don't have any more elections." But you have the lawfare. If he thinks he had lawfare before, what's going to come if they take the House and Senate is going to make lawfare from the past look like a picnic, and they're going to be working to like stack the court. They're going to be trying to do Puerto Rico and DC statehood, etc. So it is very dangerous, not just over there for our troops if they were to go in, but it is dangerous for what can happen here. Marcus, please go ahead.
I think ground troops are possible, but in a limited fashion. A good case study would be Afghanistan. We use select ODA attachments with CIA and air assets, and they retook with Afghanistan within like 2 months, less than that. But it was like what they did was build momentum, and I mentioned that in a previous podcast. There's already like a group willing to fight, and those are the Kurds. They've been dicked around so many times about having their own country that I think with proper motivation, I think they're being held back, or they're just prepping to build up a force enough to do the slow push going west to east, because like in Syria, for them to make a push against Bashar al-Assad, uh, it took maybe a year and a half, 2 years preparation for them to do a good push. With that being said, I believe that Kurds augmented with ODA or SF with air assets, where there's limited engagement on their part, but they could provide a logistical communication supply uh, asset to do a slow rollout. And I think something like that would carry momentum. And if they have, was it Rezi, the Shah's son?
Reza Pahlavi Jr.
Yeah, I mean, if he actually touches ground while there's a slow rollout, it could cause a momentum and accelerant to really change the tide. But it's like the Special Air Service, they have a phrase, who dares wins. You have to make bold steps to make the best gains.
Yeah, I don't know about that, Marcus. I had conversation the other day. I had a brunch on Sunday with a very good friend of mine who knows that region very, very well. I mean, he was actually born in southern Turkey, and he knows, the history of, the Ottoman Empire inside and out, and knows all the power struggles over the centuries and stuff. And one thing that he was telling me, getting to your point about the Kurds, he said, listen, the Kurds are a relatively, small number of people relative to the 90 million population of Iran. And he said that, people forget, that there is 90 million people living in Iran. Not all of them are Persians. There's actually an enormous number of Azeris in the eastern part of Iran that make up a very sizable component. And they're not, Persian. They're not, they're basically of Turkish origin, Turkics, I guess you would call them. And so I think the idea that, and we talked about the Shah. I mean, I think I don't see an enormous. Obviously, the guy has thrown his hat in the ring, and I haven't seen a groundswell of opinion either in Iran or outside of Iran of people like saying, "Oh yeah, this is our man." Okay, I think he's trying to relive the past. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think he's going to be the one that's going to go in there victoriously and reassert the Shah's legacy in Iran. I don't know if the Kurds have the manpower and the ability to, uh, you know, take over such an enormous, country and a very power, even though they're diminished, a very radicalized IRGC. I don't know if that's possible. There's a lot that I don't know. um, but I
But
think, I think, we just, we there is no other alternative. Just kind of wait this thing out and hope that the people in charge, okay, starting with the president, um, know what they're doing, have a plan, and pull the right levers, because it's a very delicate situation right now, and we're getting closer and closer to the midterms. I sort of believe the president when he says that he doesn't really care about the midterms, because this is really a much more consequential issue. The whether Iran is left with nuclear weapons or the ability to make nuclear weapons or not, that's something that is worth losing an election over. Okay, but I think at the back of at the end of the day, the president would like to do both, right? I mean, win the elections and make sure these guys don't get nukes ever again.
Yeah,
But
well, he's got the one losing.
but
It's
I
his
don't know if
party
he's going to be able to
that's
pull that off, right? I mean, I think again, back to Carlos's opening comments, I think American people look, and we've talked about this before in past episodes. There's one thing I've learned in a lifetime growing up in the United States of America from the age of 3. Okay, um, Americans really don't have an appetite for any war that goes on more than a few months, a year max. They just don't. They and it makes it very difficult, okay, to conduct military operations when you kind of know that there just isn't the stomach for it in America, at least not in modern day America. In World War II, it was a different situation, right? Um, it was a different time and place. Um, there was an existential threat to the entire world, okay? Um, and Americans unified behind the president and Churchill and England and all this stuff, and everybody went off to war, and we took it all the way and up to and including dropping atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? I mean, and like you alluded to, Carlos, firebombing Tokyo, firebombing Dresden, there was no distinction between military and civilian targets. It was all out war, right? But in this day and age, I don't think the U.S. Is, and I don't think the American people are ready to bite that bullet and go in that direction. I mean, look at what we're seeing. Getting on to the second part of our subject right now, right? I mean, the what's going on in California. Okay.
Yeah, we're going soon there.
You have this beautiful state filled with resources, the most gorgeous state probably in the country. Okay, that has basically been run into the ground by these radical democratic socialists, and Los Angeles, that the city of angels, right? I mean, this beautiful metropolitan city, Hollywood, all the glitz and glamour, now basically zombie apocalypse with all these drug dealers on the streets and living in the parks and shitting everywhere, and just this madness going on. And you got this guy Spencer Pratt now running for mayor, who may pull off a big surprise tonight,
And Steve Hilton.
but maybe not, okay, because the place is so damn corrupt. Their election laws, anybody can vote. If you want to vote 2 or 3 or 4 times over, you can, because nobody's going to ask you for ID. Okay, anywhere you go, you can go to one precinct and walk down the block and vote in another precinct and walk another block and vote someplace else if you want to. The place is ripe for massive fraud. They've already told us, hey, you're gonna have to wait for the final tally because it's gonna take a long time because we're gonna be counting the votes for weeks and weeks. So it's all fucking smoke and mirrors. It's all bullshit, right? They're not going to give up power very easily. So it's gonna take a massive, tsunami
Too
by
big to rig.
Spencer Pratt, to actually change things. And you tell me, what are the odds that we're going to see a tsunami there in the next, day or so? I don't think so.
Marcus, go ahead, and then we'll start wrapping up this part of the.
Yeah, I would kind of disagree with your friend. Even though Kurds are a sizable minority, uh, you get like a disaffected populace, and the IRGC not very well liked. But my take is, I always go back to history where there is sometimes a minority opposition wins, and sometimes the opposing force just collapses. Look at Iraq with ISIS. They came in with Toyota trucks, and you get the Iraqi military disgorge themselves from tanks and APCs, and just leave these multi-million-dollar uh, 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 armory,
Mm-hmm.
and ISIS almost took over Iraq. You look at the Syrian army; they were very professional. They had air assets, they had artillery, they had tanks, but they collapsed with against Islamic extremists backed by Turkey. Like I said, the Afghani tribe,
Taliban.
Northern Alliance, they overcame with U.S. assistance. I think there is a cause to be said where, with a disaffected populace and a very dedicated force that's highly mobile, with proper backing, can make headway, significant headway.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I think, regardless how your friend would think, I think it's a better course of action to create a fire in their backyard or their front yard.
Yeah. So I'm looking at the numbers, Marcus. The Kurdish population in Iran is estimated to be around 8 to 17% of the total population, with estimates ranging from 7 to 15 million. Okay.
Okay.
The Azerbaijani population in Iran is estimated to range from 16 to 30% of the total population, which translates to roughly 16 to 30 million people, depending on the source and methodology used. So the point here is, Iran is actually a very diverse, multicultural country, right? And it's the Persians that are in, Tehran, and it's sort of in the center of the country where they're located, right? And you've got, the Kurds up in the northwest, and then you've got the Azeris, but it's really sort of 3-4 different ethnic.
Yeah, there's Turkomans.
Yeah, and trying to get them all together to agree to something is not going to be that easy. So I think it's a challenge, to say the least. That's all.
Before we move on to the midterms, I would love an answer from one or both of you on this question. If Trump doesn't give a damn about taking an electoral loss because gasoline is $5 a gallon, why the fuck does he give a damn about taking an electoral loss over committing some troops, losing a few hundred men, and wiping out the opposition?
All right, look at the long-term goal. If he loses the House and Senate, like later on, his invasion of Iran would be as a scapegoat for further prosecution by the liberals. They'll never end.
You don't think they're going to prosecute him anyway? You don't think they're going to prosecute him?
I think he's kind of thinking about his family as well, and his name and his brand, and whatever future that holds. he doesn't want to be he doesn't want to be saddled with it. I think there's that level of hesitancy to kick a hornet's nest for the future.
Well, he broke it. He bought it. Unfortunately, Raul, your take on that? Why is he afraid of an electoral loss from one reason and not the other?
No, look, I think at the end of the day, he is worried about an electoral loss. I mean, for a variety of different reasons. I mean, he realizes that his ability to continue doing what he wants to do comes to a grinding halt if he loses control of the House of Representatives in a very big way. Okay. Not necessarily catastrophic, because I don't think that you're going to see a huge swing in terms of the numbers towards the Democrats. You could still possibly see some legislation being passed if you can find a couple of normal Democrats to vote with Republicans or something, if the Republicans were in the minority. But I think it's he doesn't want to be in that situation. I mean, that would basically be the end of his incredible influence, which he has right now. I mean, let's be real. I mean, look at what happened these last couple of weeks in these primary elections in the Republican Party. This is now the party of Trump, undoubtedly, right? And whoever he picks, whoever he likes or dislikes, they're either golden or they are up shit's creek without a paddle.
But until January,
all depending on which way Trump if he's thumbs up or thumbs down, right? Like in the
Coliseum.
The Coliseum, right? I mean, he's the emperor, right? I mean, even though he says there's no kings, the Democrats keep saying no kings, but he may be not a king, but he very much has the power of kind of almost like an emperor within his own party, right? And I don't think he wants to lose that. I think I don't think he expected to find himself in this situation. I think
he fucked up.
Yeah, I think he saw, boy, look how easy it was with Maduro, and he had that bombing run last summer where they completely destroyed the not completely, but obviously damaged enormously the country's nuclear capabilities, in and out very easily. Lots of positive feedback, everybody patting him on the back, atta boy, you're a great president, look at this, Netanyahu loving him, all that stuff. And now he thought he was going to be able to pull it off with Iran. Okay. And listen, to his credit, to the president's credit, he's the only one with the balls to try and do this, okay, which probably should have been done decades ago.
Yes.
Presidents have been talking about this forever and ever and ever, including Democrats. Oh, Iran's our biggest problem. We have to figure out a way to confront or contain this country, right? Obama's approach was to somehow try and contain it by signing this stupid deal that really didn't do much in terms of containment, right?
Billions, giving him billions.
So the president, to his credit, has, taken the bull by the horns, but the bull is still alive, and the bull is trying to gore the president, and Trump is trying to, hanging onto those horns and trying to bring it down to the ground, and it ain't that easy, and he may end up getting gored in the sense of losing the control of the House and possibly the Senate in the midterms and stuff. So again, I don't have the answers, but I think what you're pointing out, and Carlos, is true. I mean, this people are starting to question what is going on here, what's taking so long. And again, it goes back to this thing that I talk about. Americans They just don't want to be involved in wars. We don't have the appetite for it. The country's changed. Tired of 20 years in Afghanistan, a decade in Iraq, whatever, in and out of Iraq, and all these different countries, billions and not billions, trillions of dollars of debt, that associated with all that stuff. We still have an enormous, debt that's probably our biggest Achilles heel right now. And so there's a lot of legitimate reasons for Americans not to want to go to war, for Americans to be questioning what the hell is going on here. And the administration has done, and the president has done a shitty job. Let me say that again. They've done a shitty job with the communications. Okay. Maybe, at least, when Caroline Leavitt is out on maternity leave, and boy, does she miss, because, she would hammer every single day, boom, 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 boom. And now where's the chief spokesperson for the government right now? Do we have one? I haven't seen anybody like Caroline Leavitt or substitutes coming up, right? And the communication, like you well said, Carlos, it's like, oh, saying the same thing over and over again, like telling, oh, we sunk their Navy, we destroyed their Air Force. Okay, great. But like you said, well, then why aren't things back to normal, right? Well, because, they're still, throwing little boats at us or whatever. It's like, it doesn't resonate with people and saying, oh, okay, I understand, right?
Yeah.
People don't understand. They don't understand that incredible force over you supposedly destroyed the country militarily. They're supposedly, on their knees, and yet, gas is still, I go to pump my gas and it's still $5 a gallon, or $7 a gallon in California. Wait a second, what's going on here? You said this was going to go over quickly. It was going to be a 1 month type of activity, or 2 months. Now we're going into the summer. It's summer driving season. I want to go to Disney World. I can't afford to go to Disney World because it costs me $100 to fill my tank with gas. No, so they got to do something.
Yeah, well, also in closing on this topic, that hesitancy, again, if he did finish it off, and even if we took some casualties, it would be over. The price of fuel will come down, and most people would say, "Hey, fuck it, I don't care." Americans are very single issue on a lot of things, and just self-interest. All I care is about that trip to Disney that I wanted to take, or that trip to whatever, or that flight. It's better now, and I can do it. As far as that, the other thing is a deal. He keeps talking about a deal. What fucking deal? You can't make a deal with people that their words mean nothing. Their contracts mean nothing. Their agreements mean nothing. He has to know that. You have to wipe out a regime with whom you cannot trust any kind of deal. And basically, he just doesn't have the balls to do it. And I just think Trump is getting tired. I think he's losing it. I think he's lost his mojo. And I just, thank God that I'm in a position in my life where whatever happens is not going to degrade my quality of life. Thank God. But this country could really get royally fucked if this doesn't fly. Now let's talk about the primaries. As you said earlier, it's unlikely that we'll know about California. Now, maybe Maine. Well, I'd like to talk about Spencer Pratt. This guy is a target-rich environment. First of all, he's not a blue-collar oyster farmer. Mommy is his number one customer. His parents bought him the business. And then he's got the SS guard tattoo right by his nipple. And then we find out that he was sexting his wife's videos as she stands by her man.
Who are you talking about now?
I was looking for her to blink. Help.
Who are you talking about?
Graham Platt, Maine.
Oh, okay, yeah, the guy from Maine. Okay, yeah, right.
The oyster man.
Right, yeah.
And now, granted, and by the way, Trump is going to have it. Even if we win, you're right about the primaries, but he knocked off some rhinos. Those rhinos ain't going anywhere till January. You think Thomas Massey's going to be in a mood to cooperate for the rest of this year? You think Bill Cassidy is going to be in a mood? You think John Cornyn? No fucking way. Okay, they want revenge. They're furious because they got smoked. And then, of course, we got Lisa Murkowski. we got Rand Paul. So, I think he's up shit creek. But anyway, getting back to Plattner, we're going to find out maybe in Maine. We'll find out tonight if he's rejected. It seems like they're doing a slow drip of bringing all these scandals with these women and everything, and I suspect that they have more. He also lied, and Marcus, this is right up your alley as a former serviceman. He dismissed PTSD as legitimate, but when he was complaining about his problems, it was all about PTSD. All his defenders are saying, "Oh, he's working and dealing with PTSD and getting through it." Yet earlier, he called anybody who made the same claims spineless, pathetic. PTSD is bullshit. He's talking about that guy as a mouth breather who didn't deserve to live. Your fellow soldiers, your fellow comrade in arms, and he's blaming. Too bad that the Taliban was poor shooters. This sorry piece of meat or whatever. And to think that this man, as Raul said earlier, that this guy would have a shot, even in Maine. And Maine I'm somewhat familiar with Maine. My sister lives up there half the year, but Maine is not nearly as fucked up as Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Vermont, etc. But it's still Maine. It's still New England. A lot of Maine is people that left the states and they brought their liberalism with them. What comment have you on the primaries? What's your take?
I think there's what's underestimated is the shift from with Latino and Black voters going right. I think with California there was a 4% shift, which is perceptible, and then in the California counties, and 16% shift overall from 2020 to 2024. So I think it might make more of a difference. But then again, there's a lot of disaffected voters who are really pissed off, and they don't look at it as politics. They look at it as quality and standard of living. So I'm pretty hopeful. But like Couchy and the poly market, they're looking at is it between 56 to 65% chance of Karen Bass winning. But this is a jungle primary. We just need Spencer Pratt just to be in the top two.
Polls just closed. Sorry.
What?
The polls just closed in Maine.
Okay.
Yeah, but this is for the
main discussion, the California discussion.
Yeah,
I was going to do Maine, then go to California. Sorry, guys.
I'm not a fan of Susan Collins. She voted for the impeachment as well, along with Murkowski. But it's one of those. She's a tolerable Republican who could be counted on some votes, not everything. And my take is with a smaller lead, depending on the party, those outliers have a stronger say to make an influence. So, like with the guy from Massey or Rand Paul, they could make. If you want my vote, you were going to have concessions. So I think with the Pfizer bill, he put some more some guarantees of personal freedom, of personal securities, as well. So I mean, there's it's a give and take thing, but I think it's a foregone conclusion that Susan Collins is going to win.
I hope you're right. I mean that guy would be catastrophic.
She should be primaried with a good candidate, but eventually, but it's a foregone conclusion.
Don't you think though? I've read a lot about. I've seen a lot of commentary about primary, and a lot of people, especially from that region, say, "Yeah, primary here with a really strong conservative, she'll lose the primary, and that guy will get smoked in the general."
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think Mark is right. I think Susan Collins has been, she's been there forever, and People know her. It's not a big state. There's a lot of personal connections at play there. I actually had, believe it or not, dinner with Susan Collins years ago. She sat right next to me. Very articulate, woman, politically very astute. This was before Trump came into power. And she was actually making life pretty miserable for Obama at the time on a couple of different subjects. I was impressed. And I think that's, whether she voted for the impeachment or not. I mean, at the end of the day, if she's got the people of Maine behind her and they know her and they trust her, I don't see how this guy, young, brash, friggin', Nazi guard tattoo on his chest. I mean, I don't see him, making winning that seat. So I don't lose that much sleep over it. Maybe I'll be proven wrong, but I think the much more interesting race here is what's happening in California. This guy, Spencer Pratt, came out of quote unquote nowhere, and he's shown, the power of artificial intelligence and social media. How he can basically, go from being a relatively unknown individual, other than a sort of washed up reality star, to suddenly possibly being the next mayor of Los Angeles. And his campaign ads have been brilliant. They've been,
Funny.
They've been funny. They're really cut to the core. They they get you to think. They get you to laugh. And by the way, it's also resulted. He's brought in, I think, like $2.4 million in campaign contributions from all over the country. Okay, far in excess of what Karen Bass has raised. Okay,
I think like 300,000.
Huh. So this is it's quite remarkable, and it, it's telling the whole world, listen, if you, and I think what makes me so happy about seeing a guy like a Spencer Pratt, aside from obviously the fact that he's going up against a woman who was cutting sugarcane for Fidel Castro back when she was a teenager. Other than that, that she's a despicable person, communist, whatever you want to call her.
And a failure.
Huh?
And a failure.
And a failure. It shows that, there's a lot of cynicism in politics, right? Oh, it's the machine, and how, no, it's, Chicago, nobody can possibly change Chicago. It's been that way for decades. And California is, solid blue and whatnot. And here comes this guy, Spencer Pratt. You remember that first commercial of his, right, with a trailer on his burned out property,
Airstream,
saying, "I'm running because Karen Bass burned my house down. She let my house, and the Democrats and the governor, allowed this city to burn to the ground, and I no longer have a house." Okay. And then he started with all the clever ones, the little Lego characters and this and that. And
the first debate.
Yeah.
The first debate.
Yeah.
Best skip the next debate. Skip the next debate.
Yeah. So I think it shows that, listen, one man or woman, can make a difference, right? I mean, if you've got that fire in your belly and you are really pissed, and you take advantage of modern technology now that allows you to gather, information, to do clever videos and stuff, in a heartbeat without having to expend, tons of money. You can change the world. I mean, who would have thought, like I said, that a, somewhat unknown, former reality TV star would come out of nowhere. And he kind of reminds me, remember that old like Apple computer ad, you know, in the 80s when they were introducing the Mac, right? And there were all these people, like these zombies, like the black and white, right? They were in a theater. They were all staring at this, you know, dictator talking to them in a black and white image, you know, telling them what to do. And and then this athletic woman comes running in to the theater with a hammer, right? And she spins around like an Olympic athlete, and she throws the hammer, and she busts the image of this dictator, you know, giving the people their marching orders. And it was a Nike ad, very, very, very. No, it wasn't Nike. It was an ad for Apple computers, right? For the Apple Mac that was going to change the world. And that advertisement, you know, cost them a ton of money. I think they only ran it like once, but it put Apple and the Mac computer front and center in the minds of Americans, right? And that was back in the 80s, okay, practically. And now along comes Spencer Pratt, and he basically has done exactly what Apple did, you know, back in the late 80s or early 90s or whatever, with that advertisement. He's taken the world by storm and shown that, you know, yes, you can challenge that you know, dictatorial regimen that tells you have to only be using an IBM computer. No, here I come with a Mac, and there's something else that you can use for computing that doesn't operate on this, you know, clunky old operating system that Microsoft has.
Yeah, and the thing is, people identify authenticity in a compelling story. I mean, for a person who lost his home and had one of his neighbors die from across the street,
yeah,
that's compelling. And you know, he comes off as very authentic. He comes off with, you know, no nonsense and to the point. And when you see him in the debate, it just night and day difference.
Look, I think one of the things that will come out of this election, you know, I think the big question mark here are there enough normal people, normal Democrats left in California to where they will put aside their fanaticism for LGBTQ plus and the environment and all these, you know, things that they care about? Are they willing to put that aside because their city has burned to the ground? A big chunk of their city burned to the ground because they've got zombie drug dealers everywhere. I mean, are there enough rational people left in California that will say, yeah, man, I mean, you know, I love my gay neighbors, et cetera, but I can't keep voting for this woman who's destroying our city, right? I mean, I have to go with Spencer Pratt, even though I might piss off my you know, gay or lesbian couple living next to me, right? I don't know. Are there enough of those people left in California? We'll find out in the next couple of days.
What's funny is there's like two college polling, one from like UC Berkeley and another one, and those two polls, the one who was leading was the councilwoman, the Marxist. So that shows you how bad the schools are in California, where and then Bass came in second in that poll. So
you're talking about tandoori ramen. That's what I call it.
Yeah, she came in like was leading in the poll, like, you know, like 30%.
Let me ask you something about that lady. Wouldn't she be taking more votes from Bass than she would Pratt? I would think. She's a Marxist liberal. So is Bass. Does she not dilute? Why is she running against Bass if Bass is such a good mayor, where her own party's throwing another liberal at her?
Maybe she's not extremist enough.
Right, but that's good.
She didn't do enough for the homeless. And the Spencer Pratt goes, "Oh, I can show you the homeless. You'll be stabbed in the neck."
That was beautiful. There would be a time when if there were a debate and you went in there, however you did, good or bad, and the next debate you didn't withdraw like Biden withdrew, so there wasn't a second debate. He was done after the first. But there was a time when if you did that, and not too distant time, if you bailed on the next debate, you're done. That's it. You're out. You're shot to shit because your opponent has a free-for-all to define you. Karen Bass did, and I think that other lady, neither of them, if I'm not mistaken, I know Bass did not show up for the second debate. And I wonder if Pratt didn't maybe could have maybe as brilliant as his campaigns were, pound that enough. Why does Mayor Bass feel that she is above explaining herself to the voters of Los Angeles? Why does she feel that she doesn't need to stand up for her record and campaign? Why does she disrespect all of you so much? And why do you allow her to get away with that?
Yeah, she wants the voters to be ignorant. Ignorance is bliss.
Well, the ignorance is the mother's milk of liberalism, and hypocrisy is its hallmark. That's one of my catchphrases on Facebook. I always say liberalism is a mental disorder. I can't take credit for that. That was Michael Savage, and hypocrisy is the hallmark of liberalism.
So we'll see, man. We'll see whether there's enough rational people left in California the next couple of days, to see if
Well,
this guy Pratt's got
couple
a
days, might be a couple of weeks.
or a couple of weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
But look, I think it's important, man. I mean, but my biggest fear with California is that it's been so rotten for so long that this next generation of Californians have grown up with totally twisted views of what the world really is like, right? I mean, it's they're all focused on the wrong things. I mean, it's just like it's going to be very hard to sort of correct that mindset in that generation.
Well, also, the more that rational people and those with the means to leave, that to me boils down and concentrates the dipshit, loser, disgruntled, I don't give a shit demographic. That group stays behind. They're bitter, and they'll take it out on whatever. They'll take and they'll double down. It's the Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
That possesses them.
But seriously, it really is a shame, man. I mean, California. I mean, look, Silicon Valley, the gross domestic product of Silicon Valley is equivalent to a top 20 or 30 country, right? I mean, what they produce there. The education system in California, for the longest time, the public universities of California were considered among the top, and a couple of them still are, right? California, Technical Institute, right? The MIT of the West, a couple of them still are, amazing.
Yeah.
But, there was so much that was good about California that, huge defense industries, right? Big military communities in Southern California and elsewhere, right? And to see it kind of just go to shit, I mean, it's just like, wow, man, I mean, I think any American who, ever traveled to California would come back saying, my God, man, I mean, that coastline is beautiful. The country is, the state is spectacular, right? I mean, it's so pretty, San Francisco, the hills and the Golden Gate Bridge, and there's so much beauty, right? And so much splendor in California, the wine country.
I was there for 4 years because I'm a USC grad, but when I got out, I did 2 years in the desert. Practiced my first job was a Medi-Cal satellite clinic. The guy's office was in San Diego, but I had every other weekend. I had a 3-day weekend. We'd go camping, backpacking. It was nice. We go out to restaurants. We had But I was so when I realized I was going to come back to Florida no matter what. But my God, the timing couldn't have been better. We left in '86, and after about '90, it started to go to shit. Reagan carried California twice. Is that almost impossible to believe today?
Yeah.
They had Republican governors up to I think the last guy was Pete Wilson in the '90s. And then all shit went loose.
It's a classic case of Hollywood parroting real life. Look at the movie Idiocracy. We're living that. Where, I mean, it's unfathomable. I mean, you have to be really blind in your ideology to overlook the fire, the homelessness, the drugs, the fraud, the waste, the abuse. The bridge to nowhere, the homeless industrial complex. it's idiocracy.
The movie industry bailed ages ago. A lot of the movie industry has left California. And by the way, you were talking about AI. AI is going to really kill entertainment. It's going to those A-list actors, and let's not forget a lot of these actors are backing Spencer Pratt. Leonardo DiCaprio, that blew me away that he is backing Spencer Pratt.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that there's enough, like I said, people that still have a conscience and still, care about, what their city looks like and what the state of their state is like, right? So we'll see.
All right.
Hope
So
springs eternal.
I'm going to entertain from each of you any closing comment, and then we'll wrap this baby up for tonight. And I guess by the next podcast, we'll know certainly Maine. I think we'll know that maybe by tonight, and by then even California, we ought to know. That would be my take on that.
Well, no, they'll probably go. If nobody gets 50%, they go to another round, right? So,
yeah.
If Spencer Pratt by some miracle gets more than 50% of the vote tonight, then it's kind of a done deal, right? But I think
I don't know, the betting odds aren't the betting odds that both Maine and California will have runoff. That in neither case there will be a 50%. People are too fucking stupid.
And Ramen votes would go to Karen Bass.
Yeah.
So all right, so I guess that'll do it. So we will see, and we will let you guys know. So it's been a pleasure discussing the topics with you gentlemen tonight, and let's hope that in our next episode we have some good news to report, including on this Iran mess. So all of you, if you like and subscribe, have a good night.